Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, today I come to you with a word of encouragement, a divine revelation that will ignite faith in your heart and renew your strength. Life has a way of pushing us to the edge, making us feel uncertain about the future, but I have come to tell you that when God is preparing something great for you, there are signs. Yes, there are divine indicators, signals from heaven that tell you your season is about to change. I want you to listen carefully, because what you are going through right now might not be a breakdown. It could be a divine setup for your breakthrough. And today I want to share with you 8 signs that God is preparing something great in your life. 0.1. You experience unusual discomfort and restlessness. One of the most telling signs that God is preparing something great in your life is an unshakable feeling of discomfort. This is not the kind of discomfort that comes from making bad decisions, nor is it the result of failure or mistakes. It is a deep internal restlessness that makes you feel like where you are no longer fits who you are becoming. The things that once excited you begin to lose their appeal. The environment that once felt comfortable starts feeling restrictive. It is as if something within you knows that there is more, and yet you are unsure what that more is. This feeling is a divine nudge, a sign that God is stirring something within you. Abraham experienced this when God told him to leave his homeland and step into the unknown, Genesis 12:01. He was living in a familiar place, surrounded by everything he knew, yet God planted in him a call to something greater. That call created a sense of urgency, a knowing that where he was could no longer contain his destiny. Many people ignore this feeling and try to suppress it, convincing themselves that they should be content where they are. But divine restlessness is not a sign of ingratitude. It is a sign of growth. When a bird outgrows its nest, the nest becomes uncomfortable. The tight space that once provided security now feels suffocating. The same is true for a person on the verge of transition. God allows discomfort to push you out of places where you have settled for less than what he has planned for you. A man working a stable corporate job once shared his experience of growing unease. At first he dismissed it as boredom, thinking he just needed a vacation. But no amount of rest or distraction could shake the feeling that he was supposed to be doing something different. When he finally leaned into prayer, he realized God was calling him to step into entrepreneurship. The discomfort was not a sign that something was wrong. It was a signal that something greater was ahead. This restlessness may also manifest in relationships. People who once felt like family may begin to drift away. Conversations that used to feel fulfilling may now seem empty. It can feel isolating, but it is a divine process. God is shifting your circle, because he is shifting your assignment. Change is never comfortable, but it is necessary for growth. The process of a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly is uncomfortable. The cocoon stage is restrictive, dark, and isolating. But it is in this place of discomfort that the transformation happens. If the caterpillar remains in the cocoon, it will never take flight. In the same way, when God is preparing you for something greater, he will allow discomfort to move you out of where you are and into what he has designed for you. When God is preparing something great in your life, opposition often intensifies. Many people believe that hardships mean they are out of alignment with God's will, but in reality, the opposite is often true. The enemy does not attack those who are stagnant. Resistance comes when you are moving forward. Joseph's life is a powerful example of this. God gave him a dream of greatness, yet almost immediately opposition arose. His brothers, fueled by jealousy, threw him into a pit and sold him into slavery, Genesis 37:18, 28. From there, he faced false accusations, imprisonment, and years of delay. From a human perspective, it seemed unfair. Why would someone with such a clear calling face so many trials? But every challenge was a step toward the fulfillment of his purpose. Many people give up when faced with unexpected trials, believing that difficulty means they have missed their path. But trials are not indicators of failure. They are indicators of preparation. The stronger the foundation, the taller the building. If God is going to elevate you, he must first strengthen you. A woman who had been praying for a promotion at work found herself facing hostility from colleagues and an overwhelming. She questioned whether she was in the right place, wondering why she felt resistance instead of favor. But what she did not realize was that God was allowing the opposition to refine her leadership skills. When the promotion finally came, she was not just given a new title, she was prepared for it. The trials had sharpened her resilience, deepened her wisdom, and positioned her for success. Jesus himself faced great opposition before stepping fully into his destiny. Before beginning his ministry, he was led into the wilderness to be tested. Luke 4:01 through 13. The enemy did everything to derail him, yet each challenge only solidified his authority. If Jesus had to endure trials before stepping into his divine purpose, how much more should we expect challenges when God is preparing something great in our lives? Sometimes opposition comes from people closest to you. Friends who once supported you may begin to question your vision. Family members may not understand the path you are taking. When David was anointed to be king, his own brothers doubted him, 1 Samuel 17:28. But their doubt did not stop God's plan. The weight of your trials is often an indicator of the weight of your calling. Athletes who train for high-level competition endure rigorous testing. They do not complain about the intensity of their workouts because they know the challenge is preparing them for victory. In the same way, God allows trials to strengthen your endurance, build your character, and prepare you for what is coming. Pressure produces diamonds. If everything in life were easy, faith would never be tested, patience would never be developed, and strength would never be built. Every successful person has a testimony of battles they had to fight. Every champion has scars that tell a story of perseverance. If you are facing opposition, if doors are slamming in your face, if obstacles seem to appear at every turn, do not be discouraged. It is a sign that you are being prepared for something greater. One of the most confusing yet significant signs that God is preparing something great for you is when doors that once seemed secure suddenly close. Opportunities that once flowed effortlessly may begin to dry up. People who once supported you may unexpectedly withdraw. A job that seemed stable may suddenly end, or a relationship you thought would last may come to a halt. At first, these experiences may feel like rejection or failure, but in reality, they are often divine redirections. When Elijah was by the brook of Cherith, God provided for him by sending ravens to feed him, and he drank from the brook. 1 Kings 17:02-6. But one day the brook dried up. The same source that had sustained him was no longer available. This was not because God had abandoned him, but because God had a greater plan. Elijah was not meant to stay at the brook forever. His next assignment awaited him in Zarephath, where God had prepared a widow to provide for him and where a greater miracle would unfold. When a door closes, it is easy to become frustrated, questioning why something that once worked suddenly stops. But God does not allow doors to close to harm you. He closes them to reposition you. A man once worked in a company for 10 years, convinced that he would retire from that position. One day, without warning, the company downsized and he was laid off. For months, he struggled with disappointment, wondering why God had allowed it. But because he had no other option, he took a leap of faith and started a business he had always dreamed of pursuing. Years later, that business grew beyond what he could have imagined, and he realized that if the door of his old job had never closed, he would have never stepped into his true calling. God sees what you cannot see. What feels like a loss is often a setup for something better. A closed door is sometimes a way of protecting you from something that is not meant for you. People pray for direction, but then resist when God closes the wrong doors to lead them toward the right ones. Holding on to something that God is trying to remove can delay the greater purpose He has for you. Not every opportunity is meant to last forever. Some things are seasonal. When a tree bears fruit, there comes a time when the fruit must be picked and the season changes. If the fruit is not harvested, it will rot. In the same way, staying in a place beyond its season can cause stagnation. When God closes a door, He is not taking something from you. He is making room for something greater. There is also a difference between a door closing and a door that requires persistence. Some doors require knocking, patience, and faith. But when a door continuously resists opening despite every effort, when peace is absent and God is leading you in another direction, it may be a sign that He's guiding you elsewhere. Before God does something great in your life, He often draws you closer to Him. There is an inner stirring that causes you to seek Him more than before. A deep hunger for His presence begins to grow. You may find yourself waking up earlier to pray, craving moments of worship, or feeling an urgency to spend time in the Word. This is not a random feeling, it is preparation. Moses spent 40 days on the mountain in the presence of God before leading Israel, Exodus 34:28. Jesus fasted and prayed for 40 days before stepping into His public ministry, 1 Peter 1:1-2. Paul spent time in solitude, seeking God before beginning his mission, Galatians 1:15-17. Before any major move of God, there is always a season of deep preparation through prayer. When you feel an increased desire to seek God, it is a sign that He is about to shift something in your life. This pull is not just about personal growth. It is about divine alignment. God is drawing you into deeper intimacy because what He is about to do requires you to be spiritual. A woman once felt an overwhelming urge to pray every night despite not knowing why. For weeks, she woke up at odd hours interceding without a clear understanding of what was happening. Months later, her husband faced a serious health crisis. Doctors were amazed at how quickly he recovered, and she realized that her prayers had been preparation for what was to come. God had drawn her into intercession before the battle even appeared. This increased hunger for God can sometimes come with a sense of urgency. It may feel like something is shifting in the spiritual realm. Old habits may lose their appeal. Certain distractions that once consumed time may suddenly feel empty. This is God clearing away the noise, refining focus, and preparing the heart for what is coming. Sometimes this pull toward prayer happens during moments of uncertainty. When a person does not have all the answers and clarity seems distant, the only option is to press into God. It is in these moments of deep seeking that direction is given. God does not always reveal everything at once, but He guides step by step. Seeking God in this way also brings divine wisdom. There are decisions ahead that require discernment, and the closer a person is to God, the clearer they can hear His voice. When Solomon asked for wisdom instead of riches, God granted him more than he could have imagined. 1 Kings 3:9-13. Those who prioritize God's presence receive the clarity, peace, and strength needed to walk into their next season. This increased desire for God is not just about personal breakthrough. It is also about preparation for impact. Every great revival, every great movement of God has started with a people who sought Him with everything. When someone feels this divine pull, it is because heaven is aligning them for something greater. When God is preparing something great in your life, He often speaks through repeated confirmations. You may notice the same scripture appearing multiple times in different places, during a sermon, in a conversation, or even in a book you randomly open. A particular message may seem to follow you, showing up in unexpected moments. These are not coincidences. They are divine signals, God's way of reinforcing His word to you. Samuel experienced this when he was a young boy serving in the temple. God called his name 3 times before he understood that it was the Lord speaking. 1 Samuel 3:8-10. Repetition was necessary for Samuel to recognize God's voice. In the same way, when God is leading you into something new, He often repeats His message until you grasp it fully. Sometimes these confirmations come through people who have no knowledge of your situation. A stranger may say something that directly aligns with what you have been praying about. A mentor or friend may unknowingly give you advice that perfectly answers the question in your heart. These moments are not random. They are orchestrated by God to assure you that He is guiding your steps. A businessman once prayed for direction on whether to leave his corporate job and step into ministry. He was uncertain, afraid of making the wrong decision. Over the course of a week, 3 different people, none of whom knew his inner struggle, told him they saw him working in ministry. A pastor he had never met before spoke directly to him about the exact fears he had been battling. These repeated confirmations were God's way of assuring him that the decision he was afraid to make was already part of his plan. God also confirms his will through peace. When something is from him, there is an inner assurance that settles deep within the heart. Even if the road ahead is unclear, there is a sense of confidence that the next step is the right one. This peace surpasses human understanding, Philippians 4:7. Dreams and visions can also serve as divine confirmations. Throughout Scripture, God used dreams to guide his people. Joseph received dreams about his future, Genesis 37:5-10, and Daniel was given visions that revealed divine mysteries, Daniel 7:1-3. While not every dream is from God, there are moments when he uses them to confirm something significant. Repeated exposure to a specific word or message is another way God speaks. A woman who was considering a major relocation kept encountering the phrase, "new beginnings," everywhere she went. It appeared in books, in sermons, and even on billboards. This repetition was not accidental. It was God affirming that her decision to move was aligned with his plan. Divine confirmations also come through Scripture. A person may be drawn to a specific verse that directly addresses the situation. The Bible is living and active, Hebrews 4:12, and God often uses his word to confirm what he is doing. Ignoring these confirmations can lead to unnecessary delays. Many people receive clear signs but hesitate, waiting for even more proof. But faith requires action. When God has spoken repeatedly, it is a call to move forward with confidence. Before stepping into something great, there is often a strong internal push to release things that no longer serve your purpose. This can include habits, routines, mindsets, or even relationships that are not aligned with where God is taking you. This process of letting go is not always easy, but it is necessary for growth. When the Israelites were about to enter the Promised Land, they had to leave Egypt behind. Some of them wanted to return to what was familiar, even though it was bondage. Exodus 16:03. Holding on to the past can keep a person from stepping into their future. An athlete preparing for a major competition must let go of anything that hinders their performance. Poor eating habits, distractions, or lack of discipline will prevent them from achieving their goal. The same principle applies in spiritual preparation. If God is calling someone to a new level, certain things from the past cannot go with them. Some friendships and relationships may no longer fit the journey ahead. A person who once shared common goals with certain friends may begin to feel a disconnect. Conversations that used to be engaging may start to feel empty. This is not because those relationships were bad, but because they were only meant for a particular season. When God is preparing someone for greater things, he often separates them from people who are not part of that future. A man once struggled with a group of friends he had known for years. They were not necessarily harmful, but their lifestyles no longer aligned with the path he felt called to follow. He resisted change for a long time, fearing loneliness. But as he obeyed the inner urge to distance himself, he found new relationships that strengthened his purpose rather than distracting him from it. Letting go is also about releasing old mindsets. A person who has always thought small cannot step into something great without first renewing their thinking. The way one sees themselves determines how they receive what God is offering. The Israelites saw themselves as grasshoppers compared to the giants in the land, and their mindset kept them from entering their promise. Numbers 13:33. Certain habits must also be surrendered. A person called to a higher purpose cannot continue with the same patterns that once defined them. A businessman looking to expand his company must let go of small-scale thinking. A leader stepping into a new role must release insecurities that would hinder their ability to lead effectively. Letting go can sometimes feel like loss, but it is actually preparation. When a tree is pruned, it loses branches. But this process allows it to grow even stronger and bear more fruit. John 15:02. Growth requires removal. The struggle to release old things often comes from fear of the unknown. Many people hold on to what is familiar because it feels safe. But stepping into something great requires trust. If God is prompting someone to let go, it is because he is making room for something better. When God is preparing something great for your life, there is often a season of waiting that can feel frustrating and confusing. It may seem like everything is at a standstill, as if prayers are going unanswered and progress has been halted. The plans you were once certain about may face unexpected delays, and no matter how much effort you put in, things may not move as quickly as you hoped. This is not a sign of failure, it is divine preparation. David was anointed king as a young man, but he did not step into that position immediately, 1 Samuel 16:13. Instead, he spent years tending sheep, serving under King Saul, and even running for his life before he finally ascended to the throne. From a human perspective, this delay may have seemed unnecessary, but in reality, it was essential for his growth. The waiting season was God's way of equipping him with the character, resilience, and wisdom he needed to lead a nation. If David had rushed into his kingship without the necessary preparation, he would not have been ready for the weight of his assignment. Delays are often tests of faith and patience. When things do not happen according to personal timelines, it is easy to become discouraged. Many people abandon their dreams during seasons of waiting because they mistake divine preparation for rejection. But just as a farmer does not harvest a crop the day after planting the seeds, the fulfillment of God's promises takes time. A delay does not mean denial. It means God is working behind the scenes to align circumstances for his perfect timing. A woman who had been praying for a breakthrough in her career faced years of waiting. She watched others move ahead while she remained in the same position. Every time an opportunity seemed close, something would cause it to slip away. She later realized that God was not withholding her blessing. He was preparing her for a role that required more experience and spiritual maturity. When the right opportunity finally came, it was far greater than what she had originally prayed for. God often uses delays to refine and strengthen a person's faith. The Israelites were promised a land flowing with milk and honey, yet they spent 40 years in the wilderness before entering it. Deuteronomy 8:2-3. Their journey could have been much shorter, but God used the time to test their hearts and teach them dependence on him. If they had entered the promised land too soon, they would not have been ready to sustain the blessing. Waiting seasons are also seasons of preparation. A person praying for a leadership role may face delays because God is developing the ability to handle responsibility. Someone waiting for a financial breakthrough may first need to learn financial stewardship. God does not give gifts that people are not ready to manage. The weight of a blessing requires a foundation strong enough to sustain it. It is important to remain faithful during waiting periods. Many people grow weary and give up right before their breakthrough. Joseph was in prison for years before stepping into his destiny as ruler of Egypt, Genesis 41:43. If he had lost faith and given up on his dream, he would not have been in position when his moment came. The waiting period is not about punishment, it is about positioning. When God is preparing something great for you, opposition from the enemy often intensifies. The enemy does not attack people who are going nowhere. Resistance comes when a person is on the verge of stepping into a greater calling. Increased spiritual warfare is often an indication that breakthrough is near. Jesus experienced intense opposition before stepping fully into his ministry. Right after his baptism, he was led into the wilderness, where he faced direct attacks from the enemy. Luke 4:01, verse 13. The devil knew what was coming, so he tried to stop it before it could begin. The same pattern happens in the lives of those whom God is raising for something great. When a person is close to a major shift, the attacks increase, attempting to discourage, distract, and delay them. Spiritual warfare can manifest in different ways. Some people experience overwhelming feelings of doubt, fear, or insecurity right before stepping into something new. They may suddenly struggle with thoughts of unworthiness or failure. Others face external opposition, unexpected conflicts, misunderstandings, or betrayals from people they trusted. The goal of these attacks is to shake confidence and cause a person to abandon their purpose. A man who was about to start a ministry faced intense personal battles. Just as he was preparing to launch, he experienced financial setbacks, family conflicts, and unexplained obstacles that made him question if he was on the right path. But instead of retreating, he recognized that the resistance was a sign that he was stepping into something powerful. Once he pushed through the warfare, doors began to open, and he saw the impact of his obedience. The enemy often uses distractions to derail a person from their destiny. Right before a breakthrough, unnecessary drama, negative influences, or sudden temptations may appear. These are not random occurrences. They are strategic attempts to shift focus away from what God is doing. Recognizing these distractions for what they are is crucial. When distractions arise at the height of preparation, it is a clear sign that the enemy is trying to interfere. Prayer is the most powerful weapon against spiritual attacks. Daniel faced intense opposition when he prayed for understanding, but his answer was delayed because of spiritual warfare in the heavens. Daniel 10:12. Had he stopped praying, he would not have received his breakthrough. Persistence in prayer breaks through resistance. There is also a need for spiritual discernment during these times. Not every struggle is a natural one. Some battles require spiritual authority. When doors that should be open seem stuck, when confusion arises out of nowhere, when heaviness and discouragement intensify, it is often an indication that spiritual warfare is at play. Standing firm in faith, using the Word of God, and remaining steadfast in prayer ensures that the enemy's plans do not prevail. Those who are called to great things will face great battles, but the presence of opposition is not a sign to quit. It is proof that what is coming is significant. Many people stop short of their breakthrough because they allow temporary resistance to discourage them. But every attack that comes before a breakthrough is a reminder that the enemy sees what is ahead and is trying to prevent it. Victory belongs to those who endure. The enemy may fight, but he cannot stop what God has ordained. If resistance is increasing, if battles are intensifying, it is a sign that something powerful is on the horizon. Standing firm, staying in prayer, and refusing to be moved ensures that what God has prepared will come to pass. My friends, I don't know what season you are in right now, but if you recognize these signs in your life, I want you to take heart. God is preparing something great for you. You may be uncomfortable. You may be facing trials, doors may be closing, but through it all, God is at work behind the scenes, preparing you for a destiny greater than anything you can imagine. And before you go any further, for a destiny greater than anything you can imagine, I challenge you today. Keep trusting, keep believing, keep pressing forward, because what God has prepared for you is greater than anything you have ever seen. Your season of breakthrough is coming. Get ready for it.